Okay, hello, Dallas After Effects Users Group. I'm Jason, and thank you, Trent, for this opportunity to share. Um, let's take a look at this piece real quick and then talk about it. So this is a intro for a recovery group at my church. All right, so we've got all these boxes here and all these lines, which seems like, at least seems like to me, like a tremendous amount of tedium. Very tedious stuff, and could be super complicated to build all that unless we automate as much as that as we can. So, and then same thing here. We've got two words, and the boxes are changing, and so keeping up with all that is, if we can automate as much as possible, it's going to make our life a lot easier, right? So let's take a look at that. So let me just kind of show you, maybe kind of start backwards here and just show you the end and how the front part gets put together, and then we'll go back and look at how to build it. So here is a master comp that I've brought into a new comp, and it's set up to where the name of the layer name, it gets fed into the text source. So we can just change this, go effect. If we change the name of the layer, it changes the type in the layer. Now we can twirl this down, and this is where master properties come in. And a lot of times people just talk about these for, sending templates to Premiere and external things, but they're really handy to use them right inside of After Effects. So twirl that down, and I've set all these up. This is I can turn on the line. So really the only one that doesn't have a line would be the first one. But I made that an option, so turn that back on. Now we can change this rotation and change the length of that line. And no matter, where we do, it still does this little animation. So we'll just come down here. Let's say maybe we want this to be, over here, and line length. You can go in here and, dial that in real precise if you want, or just kind of jiggle it around. Again, just switch this up. Maybe we want to, look at my, not looking at, there you go, you can see what's going on. Had those turned off just to keep it clean, but alright. Do one more. I don't know why I keep moving to the bottom of the layer. That's really not important. Maybe this one's kind of out here. Duh. So like really quickly, we're able to replicate this, I mean, relatively quickly. We haven't had to go too deep into anything. And okay, so I've put these little markers here. This is kind of the magic point where the next section needs to start. So kind of line those up. Then take a look at that. Let's see. So I mean, relatively quickly that starts coming together. And since we've got to basically black out the entire screen, we want this to be as easy as possible. So doing a lot of work up front to make this layout part of the process as easy as possible is where, using expressions to take care of all that math, and then using master properties to kind of simplify our life, because really this is all the same text box master. That's all the same comp. So pretty easy. So how do we build that master? So let's go take a look at that. So we've got the line, a little dot pops up, and the line. And so we need to be able to rotate and change the length of that. And if we were to parent that little dot to the line and scale it, then our little dot would be getting stretched, and so we don't want that. So let's just create a new comp and see what happens. So we will make a line, bring up the safe title just for a little reference. Something like that. No big deal. Go down here. We don't need a fill. We could use a little thicker stroke. Something like that. Call that line. Alright, we want a circle now. I'm just going to double click that and get us a big huge one. And we don't need stroke. This is just our little black dot. So probably 40-40. Make it black. Okay. So now we've got this little dot. So we do want it to animate up, so just press S for scale. And maybe it overshot a little bit. Oh, I moved its transform. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. Oh, well, we'll call this dot while we're at it. Dot. Yeah, I moved the transform in here. Did not mean to do that. Hey, my other computer just finished rendering. Alright. Okay. So, dot. Scale. We've done that. Let's go take a peek at this. A little something like that. Yeah. That looks good. Okay. Now this. Now for on this line, we want a trim path for it to stroke on. So we'll add a trim paths. And I made that backwards, so I'm sure we'll be animating this. Yeah, so our dot's going to end up over here on the end. So we need this to animate like that. So we'll just go 0. Put a keyframe there. It's probably going to be somewhere around there. come back here, start it at 100. All right, so that our line draws on. Let's give it a little attitude. Keyframe velocity. One of my favorite plugins is called Flow, which takes care of all this, but it's not on this machine, so but I love it. It's awesome. So all right, there we go. We got a little attitude in that. So I'm just gonna move that over here for now. So there we go. We got that. Now we need a null object that's going to be kind of our pivot point for the line and the dot. So call this line rotator. Line rotate, and lock those, parent those to that. Okay. So now when we rotate this, our little line comes with it. But what about the length? Okay, so the length is another thing. This, turn the guide back off. Okay, so on this deal, scale, right? We just need to scale the width of it. And that's what we need to vary, right? But how do we get that dot to follow the end of it? Well, I'm sure there's some really fancy, slick way to do it, but you know, sometimes you just need it to work, and it doesn't need to be slick. So this is, you know, I love using linear, and there's kind of a janky little way to make it work for us right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale this out as, like, you know, the farther than I think I'm ever going to need it, right? So there's that. So this is 430. We'll call it 430. 430 is way out there. So at 430 in scale, this little dot needs to be at 3710. Okay, so this is seriously just silly, but it works, and sometimes you just need stuff to work, right? So if this was at 0, the position of this dot would also be 0. So that's easy. So 0 and 0 is 0. And scale 430 equals position 3710, right? So we've got from 0 to 430 and from 0 to 3710, okay? So what I'll do on this position thing, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. So we also need another null. We're going to call this master, right? We'll put all of our controls on this. This is also going to be the center point of our text, the center point of our boxes, and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to be the master. Okay. So on this guy, we will put a expression control, slider control. Okay. So we'll call this line length. Line length. Okay. Now, this scale is going to be directly connected to this slider here. Okay. Line length. So let's just take care of that while we're here. So one way, this is also, man, sometimes I just do it the fast way. It's not necessarily the most beautiful way, but if I want to make a separated expression for a scale thing, sometimes the easiest way to get a lot of the typing done for you is to just pick whip one dimension of itself, and that'll get a little expression started for you, and super easy, right? And then we copy this, we return, we paste. Okay, so right now it's saying, let's call this temp B. Temp A, well, we got temp and temp B. Okay, so temp B right now is equaling this number. Temp B is equaling also that number. So let's change that. If we put 1 there, that's this number. 0, so this is 0, this is 1. Okay, transform, scale, this is the index of scale is 0 and 1, all right? So right now, if we press enter, it's actually just saying that this is a very complicated, well, it's not a very complicated expression, but it's an expression that basically equals these same numbers. So nothing's happening. But what we really want, we do want this to stay the same because we don't really want to mess with that. But we want this to be driven by this slider here because we want all of our controls to be on the master. Okay, so if we get everything up here on the master, we don't have to go digging around in all these layers down here to find things. So it makes things nice and clean and easy. So let's go back to here. We do want that to equal that, but we want this one to equal this. So come up here, just select that, and instead pick whip the slider, okay? And we put a little semicolon there. So now it should go to 0. All right, so this X scale is always going to equal this slider, okay? And then we still got to deal with this little thing I was telling you about. So how do we get to that? So let's take a look at this. Yeah, it's working, okay? Now, let's go in here because this gets fun. And again, I'm just gonna pick whip one side of it, and that just gets some math, just gets some typing out of the way for me, right? That's like, I guess, totally kind of a lazy way to do it, but it works, right? So copy, paste, temp B, temp B, okay? I mean, that's like no typing. So this is going to be 1, okay? So this equals this right now, and this equals this right now, but we don't want that. We do want, this one to be this one, so we'll leave that alone. But on the X, we're going to do a little thing here. There's kind of like the range mapper of the After Effects world would be the linear expression. So we're going to type in linear, and again, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Let's go up here. Let's define one more thing. Variable. I'll call this line length. So I'll just call it L. Variable L equals. And I'm gonna pick whip that slider. Okay. And now, okay. So variable L line length. So now we go to linear. So temp is going to equal linear, and what we're going to look, so first we put in what we're going to look at, which is going to be L, and then a comma, and now what we say is when linear from, let me just put it in here, from 0 to 430, remember those numbers I was talking about? 430 and 0, oh man, 3710, 3710. Okay. All right, so what this says is look at L, and from 0 to 430, transform that to 0 to 3710. So what we've done is we've kind of just changed those numbers to equal the numbers that we kind of figured out just by eyeballing it. You know, there's no fancy trick there. It's just like we just looked at it. It was like, okay, from 0, and then boom, that should work. So now come back to line length. If we change this, look at there. So our little dot moves with it. It doesn't get squished, and no matter where we're at, turn these things off. No matter where we're at, it's just like it draws a line to the middle. Okay. Now, I hope you're following that. So now it's long. All right, so since we're trying to get everything up here on the master, keep everything clean, I'm just going to duplicate this, and we'll call this line angle. Line angle. Or rotation, whatever. So now we'll go to our line rotate, and this is an easy one. Nothing tricky here. We'll just drag line rotation of this null. Remember that's our null, master, not our master null, but our line rotate null, which will be locked to be parented to the master. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way. And so, but its rotation will be driven by this slider that's on here. So again, master, we've got everything nice and neat. Length right here, rotation right here. All right, nice and clean, no big deal, right? Okay. So now let's get some text in there, right? Now this is I have no idea how to explain this, but let's try it. So text. All right. So when I do text with boxes and stuff like that, if I can keep everything centered, then I can deal with offset later. It's easy enough to find the side and put something on an edge or whatever. But just for kind of getting stuff built and getting the boxes built and get the text centered, it's just the way I kind of like to do it. And it can get tricky because the anchor point is not. It appears to be at the lower left corner, but it's not at the lower left corner. It's somewhere else. Like the minute we stick a descender in there, see, it's no longer at the lower left, and we could be centered, and all these things could be happening. I mean, or you could have two lines. All this stuff could be happening, right? So now look at the anchor point. And I wish I could explain the math on this. It was just trial and error. I actually was in the car on a road trip with my laptop and had a few hours to kill, and I just noodled with this math until it worked. And it's possibly terrible, but you know what? It works, and that's what matters sometimes, right? So I'm going to parent my text to the master, and I am not going to try to totally explain this. I know I've got it over here. We'll walk through it a little bit. This is, Trent can probably, we need to name the layer, the text layer, text. So text, I'm naming the layer text. All right. So let's take a look at this. So we got a bunch of variables. The width is the source rected time of that layer, of the text layer. Why aren't you working? Oh, because I typed a Y there. Okay, silly. All right. So, and you can see that the text is like, no matter what we do, if we make it, the bounding box is always going to be centered. Okay, it doesn't matter what we do. We could do this. You can watch this move around, but it's always going to be centered. We can do this, and the text moves, but and the little anchor point moves. We can even come in here and change this, and it's still going to find its center. And again, it made sense at the time. It does not make sense to me now, so I can't explain it. But what it does, it looks at the width of this box, multiplies the width times -0.5, takes the height of this box, multiplies it by -0.5, and then it looks at the top. So source rected time, top and left. These two, I didn't know about these for a while, and man, they could have saved me so much time on some other projects. But what top does is it gives you the distance from the top of the box to the anchor point, that distance right there. And then left gives you the distance from the left of the box to the anchor point, which could technically be negative or positive. Okay, and then we take that width that's been multiplied by negative 0.5 and subtract the left from it, and then take the height and subtract the top from it, and somehow that magically gives us this thing. And again, I wish I could explain this a little better, but I can't. But here's the math. It works. Use it. So let's get this back to something a little more makes a little more sense. Text. Okay. Now we need a text box. So let's get a rectangle. Okay. So we need to option click on size to get an expression going. And we will say variable x equals, then we'll pick whip our text layer. Text, this comp layer text dot source rectic time, everybody's buddy, and we can leave that. If you leave that, that's what you put in the time there. You can put in time if you want, which means the time that you're at, or you can do time, -1 if you want to offset the time. But if you just leave it empty, then it means source rect at time right now. And there are several other fun options in that area, but we won't get into that right now. So source rect at time dot width. All right. And then I'm just copy, paste. So x, y equals, whoops, sorry. Y, I didn't mean all that. Height. All right, so now we got x equals the text box width, y equals the text box height. Okay, so if we want, now we still haven't said anything, so it's going to break for a second. Let's go in here to master. Let's just duplicate this again and make a new one that says padding. All right, so this is going to be a little box padding. So come back over here. Yeah, it's saying it's all broken. We know that. So we'll say variable pad equals, and we'll pick whip that padding. Whoops. Padding slider. Okay. So now we've defined the width of the box, of the text box, the height of the text box, and then we've pointed out the padding. So we could just do as simple as x plus pad, comma, y plus pad inside of brackets, and that'll just take care of that, and that should work. Just take the opacity down a little so we can take a peek at it, and look there, seems to be working. Let's go to our master and pump up that pad, see? All right, okay, well, it all seems to be working. Now if we go in here to text, and we, again, what if we added a sender? Look at there. It still works. It doesn't break it. Now, depending on what you need, sometimes I'll put in a little nudge amount where you have a little leeway to nudge it. But we don't need that in this sample, so let's not worry about it. All right, so we got a box. We've got text. It's all happy and dynamic. So how do we lay all this out? Call this box. All right. I'm going to take that opacity back up. This one is going to be the matte for the line, because we need the line to break away, to not be visible behind there. So on this one, we will get rid of just turn the stroke off, and all we have is a fill, and it's 100% opacity. and we'll hide it. And since these are all shape layers and things, we can take the line and say set matte, effect, channel, set matte, and say take the line from box, alpha channel, invert. Okay, see what that did there? Now that is knocked out where the box is, so we can't see the line behind the box. Let's just duplicate this. Just call this one outline. We'll turn this one on, and we'll turn the stroke back on, turn the fill off, and get our stroke. Hide those things so we can see what we're looking at. So something like that looks nice. Now, of course, we need those things to animate. And on that other deal, was it going? We had, just kind of going. Okay, so we can do that. Just have the, we'll have the matte. Call that box matte. Hey, look at that, that's fun. Matte. We'll just have this one follow this guy, have this guy. Scale up. Again, missing my flow plugin. Oh yeah. Whoops. Oh, 75. Whoop, man. Seriously. Okay. Goes. So our text also needs to follow be cut by that matte. So we'll take the text, do another set matte. Set matte comes from box matte, and yep. See. Yeah. So obviously that's coming in too soon and that text isn't moving yet. So the box scale, about the same timing. Let's just scale this down. That one was coming. Oh yeah, make it visible so you can see it. Oh boy, look at there. We got a problem now because the center's not in the center, is it? So that's okay. What we will do is take master. Oh no, we'll just make another one. A new a new null object, and just call this text scale. And just stick it in between the master and the text. So it's in the center. So we'll parent this to the master, take text, and master it to text scale instead. So we just added another handle in there. We'll scale that instead. Something like that. Put that same. And I used to have those keystrokes down real fast, but now I use this thing called flow. I miss it. I just don't have it on this computer. Alright, so there we go. The only thing is that it's coming in way too soon. So we need our line to get there. So text scale, text, all this stuff. So it looks like, we can hide stuff. We can kind of cheat it just a little bit. Looks about right. those things seem to be coming on maybe a little too. Yeah. Okay. So now we've got all this stuff is dynamic and controllable from the master. And you know, we could put lots of other things in here. We could put a slider for the rounding on the text box, you know, if we wanted. But we won't do that right now. So essential graphics. Here we go. So we come in here, we select our master, which our master is comp2, and we'll just say this is, we're going to get crazy here. We're going to call it comp2. Okay, comp2. So we'll come down here to our master, look at our effects, and we just start sliding things in. Our line length. Now the padding, we can, I don't know that we really want to necessarily need to change that in, we could, may as well. All right, so line length, drag that up here and call it line length. Line angle. Padding, we certainly didn't use that in the other thing, but who knows? Maybe you want to. And then what we need is text source. So come to text, comes text source, drag that up here, source text. Okay. So now we can come back to our little demo thing we had going on. And let's just hide all these. What if we drag in our awesomely named comp2, and oh my gosh, it says text, but we don't want it to say text, right? So twirl down our master properties, source text. Oh yeah, we call it after the name. Remember that? So what we do is we just hit Option, click on that, and we just want to reference the layer name. So this is the most complicated expression you'll ever type. It's name, and that's the whole expression. So what it does is it takes the name of the layer and puts it into the source text. So now on the other example, I had the text all caps all the time. I wanted to kind of show you that you know, the descender problem, because sometimes not knowing about that top and left deal on the source rect at time, man, seriously, what could have saved me like days on a project if I had I known about that before, and somehow I just missed it. So I wanted to point that out. But in this example, we're really just going to keep everything all caps. And so go back to demo and look at there, it's all caps, and it's working just like the other one. So if we duplicate this and call this, really? And then boom, comp2, want to call that, yes, yeah, really. Oh, yeah, I'm trying to be all casual. Oops, okay, sorry. So I'm coming here, we can go, you know, line angle and line length and change all that stuff like we did in the other one. So anyway, don't need to, we've already kind of demoed that, so I don't need to go through all that, but you'll see that's of course, this one comes in a little early, but yeah. So we've used master properties in the same, within After Effects to kind of just make things easier here, which again, we've already kind of walked through that. But that was that. And then this other one was a little bit interesting because the text box changes size. And this is also getting its text from the name. So in this one, Master Properties has 2 texts. That's all this one really has, is 2 texts. So text 1 and text 2. And if you take name, remember we put name in there, but it's got tricks too. So we put name.split, and then you define what the split is. So in the name, there's space, hyphen space. So that's a split. And then an index number. So it will take what you define as the split and split it up into however many splits you have. And then it will start numbering them at 0, 1, 2, 3, however many you need. So on this one, only need 2 words. So we put 1 split in there, and then this is index 0, this is index 1. And so text 1 gets name.split, and then in parentheses and quotes define what that split is, which is space, hyphen space, and then the index number. Same down here, name.split, index 1. So if we come in here to the name and relief, then boom, regret turns into relief. No big deal. And so remember on that sample, there's just a whole bunch of those going, right? And again, you just duplicate the comp, change the name, duplicate the comp, change the name, change the position. Super easy to replicate a whole bunch of stuff that just seems incredibly tedious. That, building the first one, mildly tedious. Building a whole bunch of them, really not that bad, So we just put in here, yes, space, hyphen space. No, and the split could be anything. It could just be a period. It could be, whatever you want. So this one's going to say yes, no. And the box changes size. So let's just take a quick peek at that. We won't go through everything. This comes on in the same way and references one layer of text and then does a transition, and all the boxes scale to the second piece of text, and the other text slides in. One thing that's kind of cool about this is that all that animation, the actual animation part is all driven by sliders that are on a null object here. Let's see if we look at those. You see all these slider controls here. So if I move this layer around, then it moves the animation around. So that transition could be, and sometimes that's kind of handy just to have, if you want a visual cue as to where certain animations are done, if I need to tweak it, I can just move this and it moves. All those keyframes and all those little elements can move, without me having to go looking for keyframes or anything. Just slide this layer and all the animation moves. So that's that. And I don't know if we want to go into building all of that, but basically width 1 looks at the first piece of text. This didn't have a variable padding, I just hardwired it in there. Width 2 looks at the second text. Height all just means the height of everything. All the boxes are the same height in this case. And then, so the width now is doing it's referencing the slider that's on this transition control layer, which basically just goes from 0 to 100, and then transfer does a range map from 0 to 100, and maps 0 to width 1 and 100 to width 2. So whatever width 1 is, when this is at 0, it's at width 1. And whenever this is at 100, it will be at width 2. And so some of these other controllers there's some backgrounds that come in and out. There's some, actual text scaling is driven by these, I believe, too. So this one is probably a little complicated to rebuild completely. But basically, I think that the thing that's interesting here is just using slider controls on a different layer to drive a whole transition just by sliding the whole layer around. And you don't have to spend any time looking for selecting keyframes or anything like that. Just move the layer and the whole transition moves. So that's kind of fun. And again, all of these things get piped into Essential Graphics. And then in the demo, like you saw, text source 1, text source 2 was the only thing that needed to get piped in here. And those, we already talked about that, are name split. So the way this is named, so boom. Anyway, so when it comes down to it, you've got some, what seems like very complicated and very busy, and certainly wouldn't want to be typing in numbers for all this. But it all gets pretty streamlined pretty quick and pretty easy to do. Anyway, hopefully that was somewhat useful, and I think we're going to be talking some more now. So thanks for watching. Bye.